During the pandemic, when I started my quaint little creative writing studio called Horseshoe Inc., helping sustainable businesses craft compelling and compliant narratives online, I saw something unfold before my eyes firsthand. Being a researcher, by virtue of being a trained lawyer and a strategist, I was always reading reports, analyzing them, incorporating statistics, and comparing them with other parameters, looking for new, interesting ways to visualize data. So it makes sense to everyone and doesn't sound overly mouthy, boring, or academic. This is really why today's topic has been on my mind for a long time. As I see this disconnect between numbers and their power to tell a compelling story, if only one knows how to marry the two. So, welcome back to yet another deep dive into the confluence of data, storytelling, and business. As always, we're not just going to scratch the surface here, we're going to excavate the very foundations of how we communicate change. How do we use narratives backed by solid data to inspire real change towards something like circularity? What can history, literature, and the arts teach us about the power of storytelling in shaping the future of any industry that you're working in? I'm Chaani, and you're with me on the Lock, Stock, and Barrel podcast. Let's dive right in. Since the dawn of civilization, stories have been the lifeblood of human connection. From the epic poetry of Homer to the mythological tales of Mahabharata and even to the allegorical depth of Shakespeare, narratives have always been instrumental in shaping values and societal change. In literature, there is a really complex concept called mimesis, which finds its origin from the antiquated Greek word which signifies imitation or portrayal. I'm going to attempt today to make a little bit of a parallel between that and data analysis. So, mimesis is the process by which the work reflects and reinterprets the world around it. This is derived from a Greek verb meaning to imitate. In philosophy, Aristotle adapted the term to fit his idea that art mimics whom and what we observe in the real world. He said that the aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance. Now, some literature experts could call this an oversimplification, but if we were to apply this concept today in data analytics, it would involve the process of modeling, simulating, or representing real world phenomena using data. Just as mimesis in literature or art involves representing human experiences, data analysis involves creating models or visualizations that reflect real world phenomena using data. A data set is a structured imitation of reality, capturing patterns, trends, and relationships. I think this concept has many vital connections to data analysis. Aristotle emphasized that good mimesis in drama should evoke understanding and emotional engagement. In data analysis, effective data storytelling mirrors this by translating numbers into narratives that are meaningful as well as impactful. As researchers or even professionals who deal with data on a daily basis, we need to be mindful of how we pick and visualize our data, how we choose our examples, and how we acknowledge the limitations of our information. Just as a painter who chooses their palette carefully, a data analyst or a professional reading data must curate and present data with meticulous care, acknowledging the inherent limitations and potential biases of that particular information. So, the choice of metrics, the framing of visualizations, and the articulation of uncertainty all contribute to the narrative embedded within the data. So, when Aristotle spoke of mimesis, he spoke of how art and stories imitate life, helping us reflect and evolve. And if you think about it, you'll realize that sustainability, really, at its very core, as a thought process, is centered in reflection and evolution. It demands a critical self examination of our relationship with the natural world and a commitment to transformative change. However, as a sustainability strategist, especially in the fashion industry that I work in, I've observed a persistent adherence to a linear extractive model for years, a stark contrast to the imperative of regenerative systems. Something that says that the critical self examination is not being undertaken. This industry, despite its rhetoric of progress, often remains ensnared in a cycle of take make waste, perpetuating environmental degradation as well as social equity. Something is definitely amiss. Despite having all the data in the world to show how harmful linear economies have proven to be, the reflection and evolution are just not happening. So clearly, if we are to shift towards circularity, data alone is not enough. It needs to be woven into compelling narratives that move people beyond mere awareness into affirmative action. And that is exactly why we are talking about data and storytelling today. Numbers always tell a story. So consider these numbers. The fashion industry produces over 92 million tons of textile waste annually, or that just 1% of clothing is truly recycled into new garments. These statistics, while staggering, often fail to inspire action unless contextualized in a human, relatable story. I came across a really interesting story about Florence Nightingale from the year 1854 during my research for this topic. During the Crimean War, when analyzing mortality rates, Florence Nightingale discovered that more soldiers were dying from preventable diseases caused by poor sanitary conditions than from battlefield injuries. So, to persuade the British Parliament and Queen Victoria at the time to invest in improved sanitation, she didn't just present raw data, she crafted a compelling visual story. Using her now famous diagram, she transformed mortality statistics into a powerful narrative that ultimately saved lives. This is an exemplary example that highlights the impact of data storytelling in driving systemic change, a lesson that remains highly relevant even today in 2025. So if I talk about sustainability in fashion, if you're a regular here, you've heard me mention this countless number of times at the LTV podcast, and I'll again take their example to elaborate on this point. I'm talking about Patagonia and its campaign called Don't Buy This Jacket. In this campaign, they interestingly used a singular piece of garment to tell a broader sustainability story, encouraging consumers to reconsider their consumption habits. And they're not alone. Another stellar example that I can quote here is of Stella McCartney, again a familiar name on the LTB podcast, who utilizes blockchain technology to create transparency in ethical sourcing, turning supply chain data into an accessible and engaging sustainability narrative. Yet, the truth remains that in the larger perspective, numbers don't alone change human behavior. I'll drive this point home with a simpler, everyday example. Imagine a plate of warm, sugary, pillowy soft, fresh donuts in front of you. Now let's add data to this tempting image in our heads. The average donut contains over 35 grams of sugar and has a glycemic index of 75. Yes, making this a very high glycemic index food, leading to an inevitable sugar crash later. But does this raw information alone stop you from eating one? Likely not. Decisions usually stem from personal motivations, emotions, and experiences rather than mere statistics. So, if I tell you that an hour later after eating this delish donut, your body will feel sluggish, After just an hour, the euphoric rush will just leave you jittery and exhausted. You will try to focus, but your thoughts will scatter like fallen leaves. That comforting donut, meant to bring you joy and satisfaction, will have turned against you in every which way possible. And it wasn't just a bite of sweetness after all. It was a deal made in haste, one that your body is now paying for in full. That is the experience that you're going to have just after an hour. And the worst part about these sugar spikes and crashes in your bloodstream? This moment repeats again and again and again until you make the switch to a high protein snack with less sugar in it. And then you will be able to get out of this cycle of crave, spike, and crash. So, with this example, did you notice what I did there? I only told you what the data points to, but in a more chewable, understandable, and relatable form. Yeah, sure, even graphic, but yes, more relatable form. This principle is crucial in, say, a sector like sustainable fashion as well, where it is obvious that facts alone are not being able to shift consumer behavior. Facts alone are not being able to stop overproduction. But stories, effective storytelling with emotional and experiential depth, certainly can. As a trained classical dancer, I understand that storytelling is not just about words. It's about rhythm, it's about movement, as well as emotion. Bharatnatyam, my dance form for instance, uses mudras or hand gestures to symbolize entire narratives, just as impactful visual campaign can distill an entire sustainability issue into a single powerful image. Fashion, let's say for example, much like dance, is an art form that exists in motion. A dress worn on a runway tells a story of its maker. It also tells the story of the fabric's origin. And eventually, it can also tell the story of its fate. And just like in performance art, audiences connect more deeply when they feel like they're a part of the story. And this is why digital storytelling, through interactive campaigns, AI powered design narratives, and immersive experiences today, can be a game changer in the movement towards circular models in every sector. With AI now influencing fashion design and sustainable solutions, ethical considerations around data ownerships and intellectual property have become paramount. I see that on a daily basis. So there are questions floating around like, who owns the stories told through AI generated collections? How do we ensure indigenous textile narratives are not appropriated, but instead amplified and credited? These questions are still looming over our heads. And brands like Aline Fisher are pioneering ethical storytelling by incorporating fair trade principles and regenerative design while ensuring artisans and traditional weavers have a voice in the fashion discourse. As a sustainability strategist and an IP lawyer, I must say that today the need of the hour is to advocate for responsible storytelling where data is not just read and used, but also respected. Great storytelling in sustainable fashion, again, isn't just about presenting data. It's about framing it with better questions. And even though these examples are about the fashion industry, they apply to every industry possible. This isn't just about fashion. Every sector, from agriculture to energy, needs to embrace the power of data driven storytelling today. Let's say in healthcare, it's about humanizing statistics on disease and recovery. Then in urban planning, it's about showing how sustainable infrastructure can improve our lives. In technology, the same thing is about highlighting the ethical implications of AI and data collection. So ultimately, it is all in the quality of the questions we ask. A valuable framework for this approach can be found in the research article called Telling Tales: Digital Storytelling as a Tool for Qualitative Data Interpretation and Communication. This study was undertaken by Davy and Benjamin Sun in 2021. And it highlights how digital storytelling can be used not only as means of dissemination, but also as an alternative way for researchers to interpret qualitative data. This study was so relevant for our topic that I thought that I'm going to give you exactly what they found so you can apply it to your life and business as well. So, in their work, Davy and Benjaminson introduced something called key trigger points to guide your digital storytelling. There are 5 key trigger points. The first being the event, where you identify the core piece of raw data that serves as the foundation of the story. Second, insight, where you analyze what this event means. Why does it matter? Third, context, in which you set the scene. So you say where the story is happening, what historical, social, or economic factors influence it, so on and so forth. Fourth is the storyteller's position. So answer questions like why are you the one telling the story? And what special perspective do you bring to the table? And the fifth is the closing, where you convey to the audience what the main takeaway is. Should they act? Should they question? Or should they reflect on your story? This is a simple but really effective framework of using trigger points to guide your digital storytelling. I'll give you a really befitting example to explain this point further. And this one involves the NFL Seattle Seahawks. At one point, the Seahawks started receiving complaints about audio quality in their stadium and ended up finalizing an initial plan of a multi-million-dollar sound system to overhaul their entire stadium. Instead of assuming a full system failure, just before implementing this plan, they analyzed the heat map data from fan surveys and found that only those seated in the 4 corners of the stadium had real issues. The Seahawks data team played the role of problem solvers here, leveraging technology and analytics to find an efficient solution. And their solution? Instead of spending millions on an unnecessary overhaul of a full system upgrade, they just strategically placed additional speakers in areas that had problems, saving millions of dollars while enhancing the fan experience. The thing to remember here is that context transforms data into actionable insights. And context can be built only when we begin with the right questions. This approach, as Davy and Benjaminson demonstrate in their 5 key trigger point approach, is universally applicable. That is the beauty of the system. From education to finance, from technology to agriculture, every single sector can benefit from the power of data-driven storytelling. It's about moving beyond the numbers and embracing the human stories that lie beneath, based on identifying key events, analyzing data, and providing adequate context, which can lead to smarter and more cost-effective decision making. If you don't yet have a storytelling framework of your own, start here. Adopt the one I've just outlined for you, shaped by the invaluable insights of Davy and Benjaminson's research. But don't stop at merely presenting data. The real power, you see, lies in transforming numbers into narratives, into stories that don't just inform, but inspire action. Data alone, no matter how compelling, won't move people. Even simple stories won't. So, what will? The ability to craft a narrative that sparks curiosity, resonates emotionally, and compels decision makers, consumers, and investors to rethink their role in society as well as in their personal capacities. For entrepreneurs, especially, regardless of industry, building a strong, purpose driven narrative is non negotiable. This is not just about branding, it's about creating a movement. So, as you shape your own framework for storytelling, keep at least these 3 core principles in mind that I'm just going to give you. The first one that you must remember is to humanize your data. You know that numbers alone don't drive the change, people do. Frame your sustainability statistics through real world stories that evoke empathy as well as urgency. Whether it's a garment worker's experience in a supply chain overhaul or the journey of a recycled material, let human narratives bring your data to life. I'm going to add ample examples for you in the description box below so you get a clear idea of this. The second would be to innovate across mediums. You have to understand that we are now in an era where storytelling transcends words alone. Leverage immersive technologies, AR, VR experiences, AI generated narratives, as well as multimedia campaigns to engage audiences in ways they've never experienced before. We are in the next era of creator economy, and we all must embrace it now. The more dynamic and interactive your storytelling, the more deeply it will resonate with people. And the third one is for you to think about ethics and ownership. As a technology lawyer, I cannot stress this enough. Storytelling in the age of AI, blockchain, and data driven insights comes with responsibility. Who owns the narrative? Whose voices are amplified? You must ensure that your stories are equitable, transparent, and honor the origins of your business practices. Sustainability is all about integrity, and creating a positive impact through truthful and ethical storytelling is of paramount importance in this process. So ultimately, the shift to circularity in absolutely any sector is about crafting better stories. Stories that challenge the status quo, forge emotional connections, and inspire systemic change. And if you keep these three principles in mind, you're going to be able to create a compelling narrative for your business. History, literature, and the arts have clearly shown us time and time again that the most enduring narratives are the ones that ignite revolutions. So, what kind of story will you tell now? In a world brimming with information, where every single statistic vies for your attention, the true power lies in our ability to translate raw data into compelling narratives. Yet, despite its significance, the intersection of data and storytelling is often overlooked, treated as an afterthought rather than a strategic imperative. Do you wonder why? It's because many experts still view data as objective and neutral, rather than recognizing its role as a persuasive business force. For me, this realization came from years of working across sustainability law and technology, where I witnessed firsthand how the most impactful solutions often failed due to poor communication. We just cannot afford to let valuable insights remain buried in spreadsheets. We must transform them into stories that drive action. The journey we've undertaken in this deep dive is more than just an exploration of storytelling. It is really a call to action from my side. And that's why I've presented a roadmap for businesses and entrepreneurs so that they can harness the power of narrative driven data to forge meaningful change. And as we conclude, let's reflect on what this means for the future of sustainability, the future of business strategy, as well as innovation. The convergence of data and storytelling is really not a luxury anymore. It is a business imperative. The examples we've examined, from Florence Nightingale's persuasive visual advocacy to Patagonia's disruptive marketing and Seattle Seahawks' strategic problem solving, all underscore a fundamental truth. Data, when contextualized and humanized, has the power to inspire transformation. So, for entrepreneurs, irrespective of industry, this presents an unprecedented opportunity. The marketplace is no longer just about products and services. It is really about narratives that connect deeply with stakeholders. Just look at all the advertisements that are geared towards you. The brands that will lead in the coming decade are not those with the most resources, but they're going to be those that tell the most resonant stories. So, how do we move forward as entrepreneurs? As somebody who does this on a daily basis, it feels a bit unfair if I leave you without giving you 5 tangible ways to incorporate this today in your business. So, here are your 5 free tips to overhaul your digital storytelling and create a compelling narrative. And if you've heard the entire podcast till here, you know that if you marry these five along with Davy and Benjamin Sins's research, as well as the 3 points that I gave you earlier, you're going to be in good stead. So let's begin. First, entrepreneurs and leaders must rethink the way they present numbers. So whether you're in fashion, finance, healthcare, or tech, consider how your data speaks to the human experience first. Is your sustainability impact measured only in, let's say, carbon reductions or waste minimization? Or is it conveyed through the experiences of the communities affected, the workers empowered, and the landscapes restored? The most persuasive statistics are those that are wrapped in relatable narratives. Second, understand that circular economy principles demand a shift from linear models of production and consumption to a more circular and sustainable model. This transition must be reflected in how businesses communicate their impact. A regenerative system is not just about materials, it's also about mindsets. So, entrepreneurs must take care and position their brands not merely as solution providers, but as thought leaders shaping a future of renewal and responsibility. Third, please bear in mind that today's consumers and investors are inundated with content and with data. So, to stand out as a business leader, your aim should be to engage audiences in immersive ways through interactive AI powered insights, blockchain verified transparency, AR VR experiences, like I mentioned before, and also in new participatory storytelling formats. The more dynamic your narrative, the deeper its impact. So definitely bear that in mind. My fourth advice would be about ethical storytelling and intellectual property integrity. As you know that with the rise of AI generated content and deepfake technology, ethical storytelling is more critical than ever before. Who owns the stories your business tells? Are the indigenous artisans behind a sustainable textile brand given rightful credit for their work? Is AI being used to enhance creative narratives or to appropriate cultural identities? As a tech lawyer, I would urge you as entrepreneurs to ensure that your storytelling frameworks are always equitable, truthful, and legally sound. If you don't have legal counsel yet, I would urge you to hire somebody or get educated on the subject and make sure that your narrative is truthful. And finally, ask the right questions. That's really my final piece of advice, yet again. Change does not start with answers. It always starts with the right questions. As businesses, we all must continually challenge the status quo. So ask questions. Are we just selling products or are we creating legacies? Are we presenting numbers or are we fostering understanding? Are we showcasing sustainability metrics or are we embedding them in human stories that shift perceptions as well as behaviors? This is the need of the hour. We're not just in an era of innovation. We are in an era where the power of narrative can define the success of an industry, a movement, and even an entire civilization's trajectory towards a common goal, let's say of sustainability here. So I leave you with this. What story will you tell? And more importantly, how will you tell it in a way that leaves an indelible mark on the world? And now, if you're wondering, where do I even begin? You're not alone. I certainly acknowledge that sustainability as a goal is a complex, multi layered challenge. But the good news is, you don't have to navigate this terrain all by yourself. The right strategy, rooted in data storytelling and a solid legal foundation, can turn sustainability from a buzzword into a business advantage. Whether you're looking to integrate sustainability into your operations, stay ahead of regulations, or position your brand as a leader in the space that you're operating in, having the right expertise by your side can make all the difference. If you've been a regular at the Lock, Stock and Barrel podcast, you know this. I talk often about my work in sustainability as a strategist as well as a lawyer. And I would just like to reiterate that if you are ready to take that next step, let's have a conversation. You'll find all my contact details in the show notes below. And I'd love to explore how we can together future-proof your business for you. And if you found value in this episode, be sure to subscribe so we can continue these conversations, helping you shift your mindset and make responsible strategic choices for your business and your personal life. Each episode of the Lock, Stock and Barrel podcast comes with a dedicated page of resources to help you deep dive and spark meaningful discussions. Find them on Substack and LinkedIn, where the LTB newsletter is published weekly. Join the growing Lock, Stock and Barrel community to get the most out of every episode. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, so reach out to us on social media or in the comment section below. Let's continue weaving the story of a more sustainable future, one thread at a time. And with that, this is Chaani Srivastav signing off from the Lock, Stock and Barrel podcast. Until next time, remember, in data, story is everything.